This was about 10 years ago, but I remember it clearly. At the time, I was working swing shift, so I would get off of work downtown at 12 a.m. and had to wait 30 minutes for a bus, which took an additional 30 minutes to get to the stop closest to my house, which was a little under a mile away. I rode this bus every night, and it was usually fairly empty aside from myself and a few other people getting off retail jobs who I'd seen pretty often. This happened during the holidays, so stores were open super late, and the closing employees rode my bus. But I was the last stop on the line, and I was usually the last person on the bus. This night, the same people as always got on the bus and got off at their regular stops. The second to last stop, I noticed that another guy was still on the bus. Another guy I had never seen before, and I saw that he was watching me. I was 18 years old at the time, dressed in sort of junky clothes. I worked at a homeless shelter, so never dressed up nice or anything, but still occasionally drew the attention of creeps on the bus because I was a girl alone late at night. Whatever, I thought to myself. I'd usually just tell creepy guys to fuck off, and at the very worst, they'd be like, "You're a bitch," and then that was the end of that. By 18, I'd dealt with it plenty of times, so I wasn't particularly upset by this. But this creepy guy was sort of different. He was an overweight Middle Eastern guy dressed in a knit sweater, slacks, and wire-framed glasses. Didn't say a word the entire time we were on the bus. Just stared, never breaking his gaze. Just transfixed on me. Finally, we got to my stop, the last stop, and he was still sitting in the back of the bus, watching me as I got off. I thanked the bus driver, got off, and realized that the dude was still on the bus. I started walking up the hill to my house, like I always do, and I noticed that the bus was still sitting at the stop instead of pulling out and putting on its "to terminal" sign like it normally did. Weird, sure, but I kept walking. I'd made it about 500 feet. I heard the bus pull out and drive off, and then I heard someone running up behind me. Without even looking back, I knew it was the guy from the bus. He was 50 feet behind me at this point. I could hear him heaving to catch his breath, and he yelled out, "Princess, please wait." And of course I didn't wait. I just kept going, but he didn't stop. He just kept yelling, "Please, please, princess, I want to make love to you. I have money, please, I will pay you." I didn't stop walking. I didn't want to make eye contact or acknowledge him. But I'm also walking down a dark street with no cars and no people, and he is hot on my trail, but can't keep up with me and seems pretty winded. By the time I made it down the block, he was yelling at the top of his lungs, "Princess! Princess! Please let me make love to you! I will pay you! Just stop, princess! Please! Please!" And started sobbing, absolutely wailing, and all the while yelling that he wanted to make love to me and would pay for it and calling me princess. He wouldn't stop sobbing, and he was so loud I'm surprised he didn't wake anyone in the neighborhood up. At this point, he's still 50 feet behind me and crying. I was 5 blocks from my house and did not want to let the guy know where I lived, so I decided to call 911. He kept loudly crying and sobbing and pleading me. I let the dispatcher know that some guy was following me and propositioning me and crying, and she could hear him sobbing in the background, and said a deputy would be there soon. I live in a really skinny strip of an unincorporated part of the county, between 2 cities with their own police departments, so the response times weren't bad. And I yelled at the guy, "I just called the cops, so leave me the fuck alone." And he just stopped, standing there sobbing. I kept walking, but slowly since I'm close to my house. A couple minutes pass and there's lights. A sheriff was coming down the street. And when I turned around, the crying guy was nowhere to be found. The officer asked if I wanted him to go look for him or if I just wanted to ride home. I didn't ever want to deal with that guy again, so I accepted the ride and asked him to just check out the area around my house after he dropped me off. Since it's pretty unusual to see an overweight Middle Eastern guy in a sweater and slacks wandering around crying at 1:30 a.m. on a weeknight in a residential area.
I was around 16 at the time of this happening. Firstly, I'd like to explain what type of person I am, so my actions make a bit of sense. I'm an average-looking girl, a bit overweight, which, for my country, makes me really undesirable. For this reason, I'm not used to males hitting on me, or even considered it a possible occurrence back then. You can say that I'm usually the man in our group. You know, the girl that looks after every other friend when they're drinking, and if a guy's being rude or harassing someone, I'm the one to shut him down. I don't know why I took on this role, probably because my friends are way too naive and nice. Well, I'm like that to strangers when I'm alone. I always try to be helpful to people if they look confused or ask me for directions or anything else. On this particular night, I was going home from school. My high school is in the city center and I take the bus home. Since the buses get overcrowded during peak hours, and I really hate being in between crowds of people, I normally wait around 30 minutes to an hour to catch the bus. This night, I walked to another bus stop, around 5 stops before the one to my school, so I can kill time and take an empty bus. It was dark, and I was the only one on that stop. I usually don't have a problem with going out alone late at night, as I don't have the men bad assault mentality drilled into me. So I'm just minding my own business when this 45 to 50-year-old man comes up to me. He has a very friendly face and a smile, so I don't think anything of it. He asks me something, and then I realize he's Turkish. I tell him I don't understand, so he uses basic Bulgarian words he knows, and I somehow understand that he's just asking for directions. Of course, I try my best to explain, and after I feel like he understood, I expect him to just stop talking to me. Nope. He sat disturbingly close to me and started talking to me, again in Turkish. I try to be polite and politely ignore him as best as I can, while nodding my head with a smile, looking at the timetable. For some reason, this guy starts asking me for my phone number. At this moment, I realize that this was definitely not only a lost foreigner. I try to shut him down by saying I don't have a phone. Don't ask why I thought that's gonna work. I finally gave in and tell him a random phone number. He says something else to me again in Turkish, and then the worst thing happens. All this time I'm looking at the 1 minute the bus will be coming in. I'm praying for him to please not try to call the number. Well, he does, and he shows me and asks why my phone isn't ringing. My stomach just flipped. I tried to think of something fast. Then I remembered that I have my old Motorola in my bag. I usually brought it to school to give it to teachers who collected phones during class. Also liked playing games on it. In 2014, yeah. Fortunately, the battery was dead, so I just pretended that this is the reason the call isn't going through. I see this guy try to argue, but at this moment the bus comes and I get on. I sit on the seat behind the driver as always. After 10 minutes I get this weird feeling. I don't know what it was, but I felt watched. So I looked around, but since I'm in the front seat I can't exactly see everything. Luckily, our buses have this gigantic mirror on the inside that shows the whole bus. I look into that and I can clearly see him. He's sitting on the last seat, his legs clearly visible. I start to panic. I'm still not sure he's following me, but I'm also a very cautious person, so I can't really ignore this. I start checking for him at every stop and he's still there. I get paranoid and I say fuck it and get off the bus. The stop was at our local mall, and luckily it worked till 10 p.m. I decided to go in, and if he follows, then I'll try to sneak out. He follows all right. You have to understand that in my town, almost nobody goes out after 9 p.m., so the mall is close to empty. I look around, thinking of ways to disappear on him, but there's just no way. The mall is an open space. There are 3 floors, all almost empty. I'd be easily spotted anywhere. Now you'll probably say you should have asked the security for help. No, in Bulgaria we don't do that. That literally never even went through my mind. The security is just some grandpa that walks around all day. They don't actually do work or anything. If it were today, I might not be as stupid, but back then this wasn't even an option in my head. And besides, the security wasn't even around. So, I do the most logical thing I can do, and I decide to utilize the knowledge I had acquired in the previous week. You see, the mall had a cool corridor system behind the stores. It was completely unmarked by any signs, and if you didn't know where you're going, you'd probably get lost, because it's just endless white corridors that lead to empty rooms for storage or some other stuff. Well, me, being an avid anime fan, loved going around these corridors and pretending I'm a ninja from Naruto on a mission. 16-year-olds, am I right? So I can proudly say that I learned the right path to the back stairway of the mall. Because I was smart and obsessed with the idea of being a spy, I decided to lure this creepy guy in the corridors and then just go out from the back into the mall. I firstly entered H&M and pretended to look around, just to see if he was really stalking me. He didn't even try to hide. He stood outside the store just staring in. I got really scared for a second, but then I remembered I'm like the best 007 agent out there, so I just continued walking around the mall. I finally entered the corridors, and at this point I booked it to the staircase. I ran out and then didn't stop running for 2 bus stops. I tried looking back, but there was no one, so I proudly decided that I'm a hero and went home. Today, being a 21-year-old grown-up, I just think about how stupid that is, and how I'd probably be 10 times as scared today than I was back then. Well, I hope it never comes to that.